Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. My name is Emma and it is time for some more monthly updates. So this month I feel like I've made all right progress. The sweaters are still sweatering. We've got all sweaters and one accessory to talk to today, and we're going to start the day off with a fail. This is going to be my fail. I'm calling it. I'm still not happy with how this is turning out, and we're basically through winter at this point, so I'm not going to get anywhere out of it until next year. So I think we're just going to put her aside and come back to her later. Anyways, this one here, this is the Arctic Light sweater by Kuto Bakika. It is it calls for DK plus lace, says equals DK. But it's meant to be knit on 5mm needles for the body, 3mm for the ribbing details. The construction on this one is fairly straightforward. It is top down and it's a basic raglan, like really. But it does have this beautiful all over cabled like texture all over it, and it's definitely by far the standout piece. It's all entirely knit in the round as well. So for this one, you basically cast on, you knit your 1x1 twisted rib for your collar. You then move in and establish all of your different cables. There's a chart for the sleeves, a chart for the body, and you start working your raglans as you work down. Once you reach the right depth for your yoke, separate body sleeves, and then you just continue to knit down in the corresponding charts for both areas. Once you're happy with the desired length, you'll just finish off with more 1x1 twisted rib. There are also some gradual decreases that run down the sleeves to give a little bit of a tapered effect. And then once you're done, you would then fold and seam in your collar. Now, my piece, I'm not going to go through all the details of this that I've done and all the modifications and the things that I've changed because I wasn't happy with it the first time. But I will remind you of the yarn that I've used for mine. It is Bendigo Woolen Mills Whisper 8-ply, which is a superwash merino in the colour 2512 Champagne. And I held that with Drops Kid Silk yarn, which is 75% mohair, 25% silk. And that one is in the colour number 20 Light Beige. The main reason I'm going to call this one a fail, and I'm just sick of it, is because of the short row shaping. So I did mention this last time that I just wasn't really happy with how my center cable is looking. And that's because two short rows worked within this center cable bit here. I put it aside, I sat on it, I thought about it, and I've decided that I actually really don't like the look of that center cable. And because it's on the front of the piece as well, and every time you're going to look in the mirror, you're going to see that cable and be like, actually, I don't love it. And since it's such a complex piece as well, I want it to look good. So yeah, I'm deciding that we're gonna start this again, basically. She's going. The main change I think I'm going to do with this one and the next one. First of all, I'm going to start with some fresh yarn because I have ripped back this yarn so many times already, and every time I rip back the mohair, there's just like fluff everywhere. Like it loses a lot of buzz factor. I will still rip back this yoke and repurpose this yarn because I need all of it to finish the jumper. But I'm going to, I think, start a fresh yoke with fresh yarn just in case the next version of the yoke still doesn't quite turn out right and I have to rip it back yet again. I'd rather have fresh yarn that hasn't already been ripped back like 4 or 5 times, and just, yeah, start fresh. So I think what I'm going to do with this one is possibly do a staggered start. Where you just knit around and then you do increases and eventually bring the top of the piece together, and then you'll have to pick up stitches and knit the collar in later. I don't know if that is necessarily the best approach. I think I really need to map out where the staggered bits, like where the starting points are going to be, where the increases are going to be. And also the other main thing, I don't know, I need to do some research on doing staggered starts, is whether or not I have to then add another stitch on for like the edge stitch that I will end up like picking up for the collet. Does that make sense? I don't know, you guys, if anyone's done like taken a raglan like continuous knit but modified it to be a staggered start piece, please give me some tips and tricks. I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know the best way to approach that. I could also rethink the placement of the short rows, see if I can maybe start some short rows further back. It means I have to modify my neckline to account for those like lost increase rounds. So that's something I could also see if I can make work, but I really need to put some thought into their short rows and where to place the short rows to get adequate lift in the back, but not going into this center cable. I think that's just the main mistake with all the short row shaping options, is that the notes on Ravelry from like other users, you go into this cable. I think that's the mistake. This cable shouldn't be touched. But then if you're only working like this bit, there's just, you don't get enough short rows in. So I don't know the best approach to getting this done other than trying to start like back here in the sleeve, but then I don't know how that's going to affect these cables down here. So I really need to give it some good thought and come back to her at another time, because now it's just not it. I can't. She's dead to me right now. But I will still eventually make this particular piece. It's not a complete fail where I'm like, no, never come back to it again. It's just a fail for now. On a positive note though, I do have a finished piece. Actually, I've got 2 finished pieces. Let's talk about finished pieces. Finished my gloves, finally. So these are the Smith gloves. It was a free pattern by Sunny Carnbatcher. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Really basic knit. It's calls for fingering weight yarn on 3mm needles. It's just start wrist up construction, and it's just basic fingering glove knit in a 3x3 rib. So basically for these, you'll just cast on with whatever cast on you want. I used a stretchy cast on for mine. You establish your ribbing, you then do some decorative increases and decreases for this kind of crisscrossy looking pattern here, additional increases for your thumb. Once you reach the right length in the hand, you separate the thumb stitches off, continue to knit up to the reaches the right length, and then bind off. I used a stretchy bind off for mine. You then pick up thumb stitches and just bind off again with whatever you want, and then you're done. The gloves, as you can see, they do mirror one another. So there is like one glove you're doing like knit 2 togethers as the decrease, and the other one you're doing slip knits. For my gloves, I used a Timu yarn. It's meant to be 70% merino, 20% nylon, 10% silk, and it is in the color number 02, which is black, as you can see, my favorite. I ended up holding my yarn double because I just didn't like how it looked holding it single. It's like, I don't know what weight it's meant to be. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be a fingering weight, but it is quite thin. It could be like a light fingering, but it's also kind of like woolly, kind of fuzzy looking a little bit. Anyways, I just didn't like how it looked as one strand. So I decided to hold double, and I had to change my needles because double was suddenly like very thick. So I knit mine on 3.5mm needles, because then my gauge was like way off with the change in weight and needles. I ended up needing to eliminate some stitches. So instead of doing 3x3 rib, I did 2x2 rib. Otherwise, I actually followed the pattern basically exactly. I did do some adjustments to the placements of my increases and decreases. So I ended up starting this decorative increase a little bit sooner so that the increase starts basically at the bottom like base of my palm. So I just did that like one set on its own, and then I started the patterns set as per intended, like just followed it all the way through. Did one extra decrease at the top to account for starting this one earlier. So that's what I did for mine. I haven't weaved in this end yet. You can see it's still hanging out. I have worn these. I just keep tucking this tail in. But basically this bind off is quite tight compared to like this side. So I finished this glove first. I did a stretchy bind off with 3mm needles, and I just felt like the bind off was still looking a little bit chunkier compared to cast on edge. And so this glove, I was like, I'm going to size down on my needles. But I decided it's going to be like really dramatic with the size down. And so I went down to a 2mm needle it looked nice and crisp, but it had like, I couldn't stretch it. It had not enough give to it because the stitches are too small. So I ripped it back. I was like, I will do 2.5 because I intended to like undo this bind off and redo it. So I did 2.5, still a little bit too tight. So I went back to 3mm needles. It's still not quite right, and I think it's just because I ripped back and picked up my stitches so many times that maybe I've picked up, like I might have split like some strands or something like that, or I just haven't done it quite right. Like I can see there's a weird like bobbly bit like right here, so there's definitely something that's wrong there. So it's just preventing it from being as stretchy as this side. So I haven't weaved in that tail, and I will unpick it eventually. I might actually go back a couple rows and then just like re-knit a couple rows just so everything's all nice and neat and crisp again, and do that bind off again so that I can stretch my finger out because it's a little bit annoying, and it is my right hand as well. So I mostly wear these at home when I'm like working from home because my hands get so cold, and so I need to be able to like move my fingers for like typing and stuff like that, and this one's just like a little bit restricted, so it's been annoying me. In terms of time to make these, I didn't really time them, and I redid them like a few times. So if you remember from last month, this was initially like a travel project for me. I did start the glove in a 3x3. It was too big, so I had to adjust it. I made like another left hand glove that's floating around somewhere. I fucked up some of the stitches because the pattern was not crystal clear on one step around how many times you had to repeat a stage. So I just decided I was going to do it again. That other glove was also on wood DPNs, and then I decided to knit on metal DPNs, which gave me a bit of a tighter, crisper looking stitch. So yeah, redid that a few times, redid this bind off a few times. So it's been an ongoing, like, oh my gosh, trying to get things right lately. I just feel like I have to keep starting over. I have to start over my Arctic Lights. There's another piece I'm going to talk about. In fact, every single piece I'm talking about, I've like re-knit multiple times. So I don't know, it must be a me problem. But anyways, I timed the last glove, and it took me about 7.5 hours to do one glove. So, you know, over the course of a weekend, you could totally pump out a pair of fingerless gloves, easy peasy. I had these on the needles for about a month though. That's that's how long I've had them like floating around, and because I've made like multiple gloves. So, you know, I shall forgive myself for that one. But the cost for these guys came to around about $3. So super cheap. And in fact, I actually got a third glove out of that price point as well because I just guesstimated on the yarn usage. But I used about half of the yarn. So that's pretty good. Thoughts on the pattern? I kind of touched on this last time. It's really straightforward. It's a free pattern. It's great. It's easy. It's a basic knit. It's nothing too complicated about it. The only point to call out is that when you get to the point of separating, you just got to make sure that your stitch count's lining up, because the pattern, it just says repeat steps 1 to 6 like 2 times, but it should say 2 more times. So you just want to make sure that you've done enough increase decrease rounds for it all to marry up. So it will tell you the stitch count for the thumb, and then the stitch count for your palm section, it should be the same as whatever you cast it on for your size. So just make sure that that stitch count aligns when you're separating out your thumb, and you should be fine. What do I like and dislike about these guys? Look, they are practical. I was not really a glove person. I have like some leather gloves in my collection, but because I have long nails, like my fingers just don't really fit into gloves. Fingerless gloves like this, I'm kind of like, I don't know, you look like a little bit of a criminal with your fingerless gloves. I don't know, that's just a random thought that I had when I see the fingerless gloves. But like, I'm not gonna lie, I love these. I think they look great, and they're practical. I've worn them out. They go for my coats because they're black. It's a really simple design. I like the like kind of crisscrossy rib situation that's going on there, and they're so practical. They're so practical. Keep my hands warm, but my fingers free to do things. That's amazing. So I definitely want to make some more fingerless gloves, different styles. I've got a few other free patterns, so I think they're really good for like scrap yarn or leftover yarns. So I will eventually make another pair of fingerless gloves. Dislikes, I don't really have any dislikes, to be honest. I will say that my ribbing, although it doesn't really look that tight anymore, this section of ribs just here seem to pull a lot tighter than any other part on the glove. I think it's just because of my like increase decreases. It's not so much on this side, it's just on this glove. So I don't know if it's just because of one leaning decrease is maybe tighter or looser than the other that's maybe happened. I don't know. But I think with wear, the yarn's like given a little bit. I haven't blocked these, and to be honest, I don't think I will block them. I might wash them in the future if I need to, but yeah. See how this is just like the rib is like stretched out to its basically not quite its maximum, but it's definitely like stretched out here, but then you can see everywhere else it's like more looser. I don't know if that makes sense. That's my only like gripe with that, and I just don't know if that's actually, the more I look at it, the more I'm like they look the same. So maybe it's just with where it's loosening. I don't know. Other than that, there's nothing I dislike about them. I love everything about them. The only changes I would possibly make in the future would be to use the correct yarn. But even still, using like a different yarn and winging it, you can do it. You can get that done. So great pattern. Love it. All right, next finish piece. If you watched last month's episode, you should be able to guess what it is. It is my Colette pullover. So she's all done and dusted. So this is a pattern by Sari Nordlund. It calls for, although a sample is knit in a fingering plus lace weight, but the pattern does specify you can knit in a single strand of DK if you want, which is what I've done. It's meant to be knit on 3.5mm needles for the body and 3mm needles for the ribbing details. It's a top-down knit. You've got your drop shoulder construction, and it's knit in the beautiful like cable with eyelet detail there that you can see. Pretty basic construction really for like a drop shoulder. So you start with your back panel. You knit that kind of like trapezoid shape on the back there. Just continue to knit that down until you reach the right depth for your underarm. You then pick up for the shoulder, knit that down, doing some shaping for the neckline, do the same for the other side. Then you bring it together and bring the shoulders together to create the front piece. Continue to knit that down. Once you meet with the same length as your back panel, you then join the two pieces together and you work the body section in the round, finishing off with ribbing. And then you pick up for your sleeves and you just continue to knit that chart. You do some gradual decreases on the sleeve. And then just finish off with ribbing once you reach the right length for it. Lastly, you would then pick up your stitches for your collar and knit a 1x1 folded collar. Now for mine, as I mentioned, I knit mine in a single strand of DK, so I use the Drops Extra Fine Merino yarn, which is meant to be 100% wool, it's superwash, and this is in the color number 06. I don't know if it's meant to be called brown or taupe, but I'd definitely say it's like a grey color. I ended up knitting mine on 4.5mm needles for the body section, and I did my trims just one size down. I did end up doing a twisted rib on mine versus standard rib, and at first I wasn't too sure on it, but now I love it. It looks great. All of my finishings I did tubular cast off. Now when you are doing twisted rib, you need to make sure that you retwist your stitches if you're doing tubular bind off on that one so that they look right, otherwise they will look funny. The other modification that I made to my piece was sizing, so I ended up customing my size to a 4.5. I have to update my Ravelry with the instructions on what I did for that, but I will have it noted there if you are interested in what I did. And yeah, that was, I think, the main mods that I made on mine. The other thing was I started with an eyelet round on my sleeve. Otherwise, everything else was basically knit to the pattern. I'm really happy that I was able to finish my body and my sleeve section like in pattern. I didn't have to do like a half chart, so I'm really pleased pleased that happened. Thoughts on the pattern? I think I've already gone through this enough times. I don't really recommend this particular pattern because the gauge is like impossible to meet, and therefore picking a size is really challenging, and the yardage is off. Even if you do pick a size, the yardage is not going to be correct. Now that could also possibly be because I did the DK version of it, but when the pattern specifies that you can knit in DK and says to use the same yardage requirements, I expect it to be correct. So I'm a little bit like, put off Sari Nordlund patterns moving forward, because I like to buy my yarn specifically for a pattern. So I need to know how much yarn to buy. And most of the yarn I'm buying is coming from overseas. So it's a pain in the ass if I'm like a ball short. So I don't love the pattern for that aspect. Other than that, it was easy to read. It was well written, everything. Like that was just fine. The experience knitting this again was just fine, but because the gauge and everything and the sizing, there was a lot of uncertainty when I was doing my yoke piece. I did knit 2 yokes as well. This is what I mean by like everything I've just like knit more than once because it just hasn't quite worked out first time. So because I ended up having to knit 2 yokes, and then I had to do some thinking. Hardly had to do some thinking, but like I had to work out what my stitch counts and stuff were to get a size 4.5, because the sizes in the pattern between 4 and 5 jump up quite significantly. So every single pattern just increases by like one of these like chart repeats, like one of the cables. But between 4 and 5, it jumps up by 2. And I don't know why that is, because if you look at the pattern, you can make it work so that there's like one size in between. So I didn't have to do like too much thinking. It was just adjusting like how many stitches I needed to pick up for my shoulder, really. Everything else, you can actually follow the pattern, same cast on stitches, same everything else, that you can make it work. So because I had to do that thinking, I ended up knitting 2 yokes, even though I think the size 4 would have probably been fine. Ultimately, it was a bit of a high effort knit for me, in all honesty. If the pattern works out fine for you and you've got heaps of yarns, you're not worried about running out, I would say this would be a pretty straightforward knit. It's not too complicated at all. I do like this end piece. I've worn this multiple times already. And I love it. At first I was a little bit like iffy on the fit around this kind of armpit area because of the drop shoulder. I do think my shoulder's dropped and is a lot longer than it's meant to be, versus like the pattern. But like it does, like the body bit cinches in, so it doesn't look too like oversized or anything like that on me. It looks really nice. I did refer to this as being like a hair down type of jumper, so that my hair kind of covers any bulky fabric in this shoulder area. But like the more I wear it, the more I think actually it looks fine, and I don't know if I'm just getting used to it or it is actually fine and I was just being unnecessarily picky in the beginning. But I love it. I love that I did the twisted rib. I think that looks really nice and it really goes with the entire piece. I like all my tubular bind offs. I'm really happy with my bind offs actually. So I learned a new technique to do like a jogless bind off, so that when you get to the end, you don't have any dip or anything, and like it just looks great. I love it. I'm really happy with how that all turned out. The color of this is probably the thing I love the most about it. I don't have anything kind of like this dark gray color in my wardrobe, and so it's unique in that aspect. It's unique because it's got these cables on it, and like I just love it. The yarn choice as well, this merino is a little bit different to the Bendigo merino. They're both superwash yarns. I would say the Bendigo one feels a little bit more warm and fuzzy kind of to the touch, whereas the Drops one is a little bit more like cool touch. It's a little bit more like maybe slick. I don't know if that's really the right terminology for it, but it kind of feels like cool to the touch. It does warm up when you wear it, but it doesn't get too hot. So like I've been able to wear this in the office, no problemo. Like it's been super comfortable to wear. If I'm at home, because my house is really freezing cold, I just wear like a long sleeve layer underneath it, and it's like perfectly toasty. Like I'm super happy with how this has turned out. I think the only like kind of dislikes and changes that I would make to this is possibly sticking with a 4mm needle. I ended up going with the 4.5 because I was, one, trying to meet gauge, and then 2, I think the eyelets looked a little bit better on the 4.5, but then I think the cables looked better on the 4mm. And I will say that like some of mine is like a bit stretched out, particularly across the back panel. I don't know if you can kind of see how kind of stretched out, and you can see it's a little bit like gapey-ish, the stitches. You can see the wall through behind them. So that would be probably something that I would change for next time. Otherwise, what else did I write? nothing really else. It would just be like fit, getting that fit just perfect. Like I say, it does fit pretty well, but I don't know, the shoulders just dropped quite considerably. And this is a super wash. I have put it through the washing machine once. It washed up fine. It didn't grow or anything like huge. I don't think it's stretched out since wearing it, but then I kind of feel like maybe the body has a little bit. And like reviewing it now, I can see there's like little fuzzies kind of like sticking out on it. So I wonder if this is going to need to be like depilled at some point. But yeah, I've only worn it, I think 3 times I've worn it. But yeah, you can kind of see like on the underarm, I don't know if we're going to be able to see that on the camera. You can see that there's like some pilling starting to take shape. So that's something to be mindful of. But I think this yarn's going to wear really well, ultimately. So yeah, that's my Colette pullover. She took a total of how long? 142 hours, knit it over the course of 12 weeks or 3 months. So because I did end up knitting that yoke twice, I think that's actually not too bad. Like the hours have clocked up because of that. But then like I feel like for a sweater, like 3 months is about the average time. Like if you're just kind of tinkering away at it, it should take you. I ended up using how much yarn? I used 14 balls of the dropped yarn. I ended up having to order more because I did run out, and I've got 1 spare left over. The total cost that I spent on this one was $85.98. So I think that's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, next up we've got a couple whips. So first whip we'll chat about is this guy. So this is the Zipper Sweater Light by Petite Knit. It's the DK weight version of the zipper sweater, and it's meant to be knit on 4mm needles. It is a top-down raglan style construction and all over stockinette stitch. Fairly straightforward one as well. You basically start with your collar. So you use Judy's Magic Cast On, knit a big chunk of ribbon, seam that together, and then you start on your yoke section. There's some German short rows to create some shaping over the back. You start working in all of your raglan increases. This top part is knit flat because of the gap for the zipper. Once you reach the right length for your zipper, you join it in the round. The entire piece is therefore afterwards. After that is knit in the round. So you just continue to knit down until you reach your right yoke depth, separate body sleeves, continue to knit the body down until you're happy with the length, and then you finish off a 1x1 ribbing, and you do the same for the sleeves. So you pick up your stitches, knit that down, and stockinette stitch, doing some gradual decreases, so you can see there, and then once you reach your desired length, you will finish off with the 1x1 ribbing. Lastly, you need to install your zipper, so you do have some stitches reserved here from your collar. You end up knitting a bit of a facing just so the front and back of that zipper is covered and looks really nice and neat and crisp, and you just sew in your zipper in between the little facings that you end up knitting. So for my piece, I am using this yarn that I've got pinned to the top here. It is meant to be 100% cashmere, but it is from Temu, so I doubt that it actually is. But I am holding it double along with the supporting cotton that it comes with, and it's in the color number 37 Coffee. I did size up on my needles because this yarn is very thin. Even holding it double, it's very lightweight. So I'm knitting on 4.5s. Still off gauge, so to account for that, I am making this in a size extra large, which should give me about 23 centimeters of positive ease. The only modifications I made to mine was sizing up on my collar, so I just knit the larger size for the collar because I've already made one of these sweaters as a gift knit. That one I did start with a medium, and I just felt the collar was quite fitted. So I was like, I'm just going to go for the bigger size because the collars don't increase for every single size, if I recall correctly. I think it's every other size that it then increases, but it doesn't increase that much in terms of stitch count. So this the largest size was only 8 stitches more than the collar for the extra large. So to account for the extra stitches up here, I just did 1 raglan round less down here to keep my stitch count even. I did also end up spacing out my raglans just to give myself a little bit more depth in the yoke because I'm way off gauge for everything. So everything I've just kind of winged and adjusted as I've gone. So for this one, I've worked on this for a total of 58 hours at this point. So that's 20 more hours since last time. And all I did last time is I've just basically continued to knit down on the body until I've run out of that ball of yarn, changed to a new ball. So I decided to pick up the sleeve and just start knitting that down, doing all of my decreases. I'm a little bit concerned that my decreases are a little bit too frequent. I think I've done 10 out of the 12 decreases that I need to do for my size. So I've got to try this on and we'll see how it's kind of looking, because in my first gift knit I didn't do that many decreases at all. I just cinched it in at the end and I kind of like the look of that sleeve. But yeah, I don't know, this one I decided to follow the pattern a little bit more, but I feel like maybe I'm doing them too rapidly. The only other thing with this one is I'm not sure on, which again I'll have to show you in the try on, which is this collar is actually sitting quite low down on my shoulders, like it's quite like spread out wide. I'm hoping once the zip is installed it kind of like brings it in a bit better, but I think it's because of my yarn choice. My yarn is very soft, it's very drapey, and it just doesn't have any structure to it at all. So because the collar is like double thickness, it's just weighing down, and I don't know, it's creating a bit of a bulge here. Blocking may also help with that little bulge. Otherwise I think I might end up having to like maybe crochet along the seam just to like cinch it in and stop it from having the ability to stretch out at all. I think that might also maybe help. So something I'll consider at the end as like a finishing detail once I've done my zipper and everything like that. The only other thing I'm not that happy about is for this I tried a new technique. So in my twist loop top it had a technique for underarm stitches where you do like a provisional cast on, and so you have the stitches, you can see it there, you can see how I've got my stitches actually on a cable holder for my underarm. So I've already like worked them at the same time as when I was picking up stitches, so it just creates a really seamless kind of transition. You don't have to pick up any stitches, they're there, you don't have to worry about your stitch count. That's very useful if you are like modifying patterns and making changes and then you end up casting on your body stitches and you forget how many like you actually cast it on to like how many you need to then add to your sleeve. Anyways, I don't love the provisional cast on technique because it still leaves hefty gaps in the corner, so I still had to end up picking up stitches, and then I've tried to like do some decreases and they look a bit messy and it looks a bit like still open, like I might still have to go in afterwards and with some thread and just try like fix it and tidy it up. My next sweater I did the same thing on and they look even worse on that one. This one I tried to keep them nice and tidy, but I don't know, I'm not loving the look of that, so I don't think I'll bother doing that provisional cast on again in future. I think I'll just pick up stitches like normal, it's just easier. But yeah, that's my zipper sweater light. I'm hoping, because the sleeve's almost done, the body section's almost done, and then I've just got one other sleeve, we may be able to get her finished if we concentrate her on her only for like the next month, but she's not too far off from being done, that one, so we'll see if we can get her done. All right, last whip, we've got my Weekend Glow sweater, which is a pattern by Julia Prio, calls for DK worsted weight yarn. The sample's knit in drops Lima, so I'm going to say it's actually a DK weight. It's meant to be knit on 4mm needles for the body and 3.5mm for the finishing details. And here's how my one is coming out. Not bad. We've made a lot of progress on her actually. I'll touch on the details in just a second. We'll first cover the construction. It's fairly basic. It is a top-down raglan style knit. It is in a 5x1 broken rib. So hopefully you can see that there in the light. All knit in the round. It's fairly straightforward. You cast on for your collar. It's just a single ribbing for your collar. You then establish your yoke, working your, also you establish your 5x1 rib and start working your raglan increases. Once you get ready to separate body and sleeve, she does instruct you to do some shaping on the back just by knitting like a section flat. You then join in the round, continue to knit the body down until you're happy with the length, finish off a 1x1 rib. You then pick up your sleeves and you just continue to knit that down in the 1x1 rib until you're happy with the length, and then finish off with the ribbing as well. There aren't actually any decreases in the sleeves. These are just markers for my row count so that I remember how many to do on the other side. And yeah, that would be the construction of this piece. For mine, I'm using this yarn here. So this is the Bendigo Woollen Mills Wisp ply again. So superwash merino, same as what I had for my Arctic Light sweater. But this one is in the color number 2511 coal. Now this is actually the second yoke that I've made for this one. So, bear with me. Here's yoke number 1. This is what you would have seen last time. So this one I ended up knitting on 4mm needles, and I tried her on. This one's been blocked. I tried her on and I just felt like it was looking like a little bit too small. The row gauge was definitely way off. My yoke depth is like about 5 centimeters too short for that one. So I would have had to go back and add some more length to the yoke if I wanted to keep to the 4mm needle size. But I was like measuring my gauge, and like I feel like sometimes I measure it and it's like right on point for gauge, and then other times I measure it and it's like 1 stitch off. Now if I'm just 1 stitch off, that makes quite a considerable difference to the ease. So according to the pattern on gauge, I should have 9 centimeters of positive ease. If I'm 1 stitch off, that drops down to 4 centimeters of positive ease. So because of that, I felt like it was fitting a little bit snug, and I just felt like I was way off. So I decided to size up in my needles. So I've actually re-knit this entire yoke. And I had to make some additional adjustments because I also changed my stitch count for my neckline. So in this original one here, I did widen the neckline, and I originally cast it on as per pattern, and I just felt like the neck was looking way too small. So I went up a size, but with the ribbing, you knit the ribbing, and then there's like a setup round where you do some increases and then you establish the pattern. So instead of doing the increases, I just took the stitch count from that established round 1 size bigger, and I used that as my cast on stitches. And at first it was looking fine, but after blocking it and kind of like thinking about when the weight is added on with the sleeves, like I just felt like I was going to open up a little bit more than what I wanted. Not enough for me to like remake the piece if the rest of the fit was fine, but it wasn't quite what I was wanting. Like if I look at the patterns and other people's projects, like the Colette is quite fitted, and I kind of like the look of it. So for my second yoke, I did adjust my stitch count. So I kind of found a stitch count that was in between the original and what my first yoke had, to get like a nice medium in between. But because I reduced my stitch count, my first one, I did the German short rows. So I didn't follow the pattern instructions for the shaping. I instead went for German short rows. And I initially just worked them in between the raglans, just on the front section. And I was able to get in a decent number. So it looked really good. And I feel like the shaping came out really, really nice. But because I had to reduce my stitch count, I now didn't have enough space in between to get in all the raglan increases that I wanted. So I ended up starting my my short rows in the sleeve section. And because I was starting them in the sleeve, it means I would have skipped out on a couple increase rounds. So I just had to adjust my stitch count so that I had the right number of stitches and I wasn't losing out on any stitch count, so that when we get further down, the front and the back and the sleeves are all like even and where they should be in terms of stitch count, and the pattern's working out and everything like that. So I had to do a little bit of thinking and just planning on those short rows, but it all worked out. Like I've impressed myself with that one, but it looks great. I think the shaping around the neckline looks really good. This one hasn't been blocked yet. I'm waiting until I get my sleeve mostly done before I block it, so I know kind of how much length I need to put on that. But yeah, I basically just knit the yoke until I ran out of yarn. So I separated body and sleeves and then just stopped when the ball of yarn ran out. And then I've just picked up the sleeve and started knitting that. So that's where I'm up to on this one. I have worked on this for how long? So we've done 54 hours in total. So that's 2 yokes and a half a sleeve done, which is 31 hours more than last time. So basically this whole piece has taken me like 31 hours. I think last time I was up to ready to separate, but I don't think I had separated in the last video. So I did separate, and like I haven't knit that much on this one, just enough to like kind of try it on and get a gist of how it was fitting. And then I blocked that and yeah, decided to restart and do all the adjustments. So ultimately I have tried this on, and in its current state it's definitely fitting a lot better. I didn't have to stretch out or adjust my rows here because I did start a little bit higher up, so there are a little bit more, a few more rows than there were before, and then because I've sized up in my needles, it's just the row gauge is better. But I have just spaced out my raglans every other round. The pattern does tell you to do some like every round, then it's every other round, then it's like every round again towards the bottom. But I opted not to do that. I just did standard kind of increases, and it's working out good. It's working out good on that. So yeah, that's my weekend glow. Basically, like I say, I'm just going to continue to knit down until I kind of reach a good sleeve length. I'm going to block her, see how she's going, and then I'll pick up my other sleeve and work the body. I've only allocated 3 balls of yarn to this, and this is my second one that I'm probably a good third, if not more, through. So I haven't weighed her, so I'm a little bit concerned I'm not going to get 3 balls, like this whole piece done in 3 balls. But we'll see. I might have to end up purchasing another ball. I've got another project which also was only meant to use 3 balls of this yarn, so I do have more in my stash, so it won't be an issue to finish this piece. But then when I want to go pick up the next piece, I will need to have some more of this yarn handy to do it. But yeah, it's meant to be right on the cusp, but because I'm a tall person, I have a feeling I'll probably end up adding some extra length, and therefore 3 balls ain't going to cut it. But anyways, I have been talking for about an hour. I was hoping this was going to be a really quick video this month, but just can't seem to keep it short and concise, can I? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed all of the updates. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what you think I should do with my Arctic Light sweater. How can I fix it? How can I make her better? And then I feel like I need to cast on something new because I've only got 2 whips on the needles, and both of them are on sleeves at the moment, which is not that fun. I kind of want something that's not a sleeve to work on. So what should I pick up next? I think I might pick up something that's leaning towards summer because we're heading that direction and it's going to take me so long to make. So if I can get started on a summer piece now, that might be a good idea, but we'll see. Check in next time. You'll see whatever I cast on. I'm going to cast something on. I have to. I can't not cast something on. But yeah, anyways, that is all for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next month. Bye, guys. Okay, I'm going to start again. I went a bit crazy with the makeup today, but I am digging this, like, what are we, 2010 vibes? This lip combo I should wear more often, but it's drying the F out of my lips. I can't, like a motorbike. What am I saying first? I'm going to start this again. It's meant to be knit with a DK plus weight left. It's meant to be knit with a DK plus lace weight stop harsh. Sorry, stop harsh. What am I saying? Oh, did I work on it? I don't think I did work on it actually. Really basic fingering weight. Oh God, what am I saying? The same, kind of just the same. They're the same is what they are. They are the same. I think I need to eat my lunch and we'll come back. All right, hopefully I'm doing good on time today. I feel like I'm getting through this quickly.